morning, everyone. Welcome back to Sonoma Brain Trust. I'm Mary Piasta with Haeuser, Valluzzo, and Piasta, and I'm here with my co-host, Chelsie Runnings with Better Home and Gardens, and Daren Blonski with Sonoma Wealth Management. And today we are delighted.
Haeusers.
Oh, shoot, man. Sorry.
It's right, because I mess up your name every week. Haeuser, Valluzzo, and Piazza, not Piazza, Valluzzo, Haeuser.
Hey, it's okay.
You mess up my name every week.
And hopefully I won't mess up our amazing speaker we have today. We have Laura Duffy, who is a commercial broker with James Lang LaSalle, also goes by JLL, and she has been so involved in the trenches of what's going on with real estate on the commercial side. In fact, we've been trying to get you on our little YouTube show for a while, and you've just been slammed with new clients.
It's been wild.
So tell us about you and what's been going on.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And thanks for staying on me because it has been kind of a wild ride for me in a good way. I've been busy, so not complaining. Commercial real estate's obviously really intrinsically tied to the economy. So what's happening with the economy trickles down and affects what my clients are doing, what local businesses are doing, of course. So I focus mostly on office and industrial real estate. My firm is the second largest globally, so we have just, across the whole service line, we do everything. So, but here in the Valley, as well as just in the North Bay, that's kind of my territory for my team. We focus mostly on office and industrial. So right now, those two markets, those two sectors are experiencing very different things, I would say. The office market is still, we're definitely not doing a lot of forecasting right now. A lot of our competitors are putting out reports about what's going to happen to the office market, but it's really because the pandemic is the recession right now. It's too hard to tell. We just haven't been doing a lot of forecasting to try to, to say we know what's going to happen because we don't know what's going to happen this winter. Everybody is still on the office side working from home. It's kind of just having a lot of those conversations. What's it going to be like when you get back to work? Are you going to go back to the same size office? What's your layout going to be? All that stuff. So I've been having a lot of those conversations every day. And a lot of people are just like, I still don't know. There's still, a lot of unknown of how it's going to shake out. I can tell you kind of super high level across the US in second quarter, leasing activity is down 53%. So that's not something we expect to kind of keep seeing next few quarters necessarily, but it's kind of just everybody just paused, right? So just a lot of, whoa, what's happening? A lot of uncertainty. But at the same time, a lot of companies didn't have that luxury. They had a lease expiring. Maybe they could tell very quickly that they were only going to need half the size of the office that they need. So there's a bunch of sublease space out on the market. And that's kind of on the office side. And that's pretty much same here in the Valley, I would say. Leasing slowed down. Sales have definitely gone, sales are funny here in the Valley, probably a bit of a standstill, but with interest rates so darn low right now, we expect people, once they kind of come out of underneath their rocks here in the next month or two, to be still buying because interest rates have never been this low. And so it's just, if you've got to make those moves, it's very attractive to do that right now. So I also work, the industrial market is kind of the opposite. E-commerce, food and beverage, grocery, delivery, food storage, all that stuff has just taken that market and just created a bunch more demand. And the supply isn't here. And that's sort of a general trend in California, but especially here in the North Bay and even here in Sonoma Valley. So that is that market, I mean, you guys want to ask me any specific questions about either or. I don't want to speak too much to, retail hospitality clearly taking a huge hit. I don't work those specific markets, do a little bit of retail here in town because it's my own backyard, but still just clearly it's going to be kind of see how this winter goes to see how those businesses are going to fare. But my clients, the office and industrial folks, are not quite being affected by the shelter in place mandates and the restaurants shutting down. That kind of stuff is, that's not really, it's not my market, so to speak. So if there's any specific questions I can answer about either or, I don't mean to hop around too much, but that's sort of in my world, office and industrial.
Specifically the Sonoma market as far as space and, concerned about a lot of the vendors on the square and stuff. Are you hearing them struggle quite a bit, or are they making it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. People are definitely getting creative. I've talked to a couple folks who, before they were even able to open up and have patio seating and all that, they were actually doing better when they could just do delivery, because they then didn't have a lot of overhead, and it was just people didn't have a lot of options to go out. So we were doing a lot of delivery stuff at the beginning. It's been kind of interesting there, where some folks now, if they've got that patio seating outside, then great. But if they don't, then, they've got a disadvantage there. I love, Mary and I have been talking about how nice it is that they're opening up the streets and putting tables out there. It's got a little European flair around town to it. But it's really one of those things, those rents are incredibly high that people are paying around the square. They're almost double what they are just 2 or 3 blocks away from the square. It's kind of a wild little trend you get trying to be right downtown. You're going to pay for it. So if those companies don't have, the foot traffic, we depend so much on tourism that, it's kind of, it's pretty clear that it's going to be still a challenge for them until we really see what the winter looks like.
Yeah. And fires, right? If we get the double whammy of fires, that would
absolutely. Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are still recovering from that, still trying to get back. And then now there's this. And I think somebody said it the other day, with the fires, at least we knew when it ended, and then we could recover and heal from there. This is kind of like, what's it going to look like in a month? What's it going to look like in a week, in 2 months? We don't know.
Well, let's talk about some of those creative solutions that JLL has been doing from the onset here, with like helping folks renegotiate with their landlords. I mean, I know you guys have like a whole policy paper on saying like different ways to look at this. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, and it really depends on the landlord. You get your big portfolio holders that have a whole bunch of properties, and they're very concerned about, losing out on a whole bunch of rent. So they're not just going to say, hey, well, nobody obviously really wants to do that. What we've been doing is just a lot of lease amendments. So deferring rent, not abating it, not totally saying, don't worry about it, but just deferring it. So, okay, I get it that you can't pay it right now, but we're going to extend your lease for 3 more months and you'll pay it on the end, that kind of a thing. Or half rent and you make it up. And so that definitely kept me busy for the good couple months, just helping people sort of, rework that. And a lot of landlords were okay. Like there wasn't a ton of pushback. They really were. A lot that I dealt with and here in the Valley and around the North Bay, they were understanding, because if the tenant can't pay and they just leave, well, trying to backfill that space is not cheap. And so the alternative doesn't look any better necessarily for landlords, especially on the restaurant side. There's not groups coming in right behind you like there would have been before.
So Laura, I've heard rumors about the ability through COVID to renegotiate if you're a tenant with your landlord. What have you heard much about that, and what is that?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I'm talking about with the rent deferring. that's what we've seen a lot of folks just kind of asking to, you know, put terms back on the table. Maybe this winter we'll talk about it, you know, can't pay right now, but we're going to sort of probably need to give some space back or whatever it is. Like I said, landlords are not just saying too bad, you know, because they know the alternative is just not a good thing for them either. So, you know, a lot of people are asking me, well, are rental rates going to go down? Are they going to start getting slashed? I definitely think, yes, they'll soften. What we are saying is, you know, it's probably anywhere from 10 to 20%, but it'll probably take the next year to get there, 10 to 15%. And that's only speaking office. Retail might be even more, industrial, definitely not. There's still so much demand for industrial and not enough supply. And we started that way pre-COVID anyways, and the demand hasn't gone anywhere and there hasn't been more supply built and there's not a bunch of new construction in the pipeline. So, you know, what we see more than just landlords out there reducing their asking rates, they're giving more what we call concessions. They are giving some free rent. Hey, you move in July, you don't pay me rent until October or something. Maybe not that much, but you're signing a new 5-year lease, you're probably going to get 2 or 3 months of rent, and that might be a little bit more these days, or more construction money, more TI allowance towards improvements inside the space, that kind of thing. So landlords are just sort of, okay, if we got you there, we're going to sort of sweeten the deal and try to make it a little more attractive instead of just slashing that rental rate, because that affects building values for landlords to do leases like that. So that's what they'd prefer, to give a little bit more to sweeten the deal. Or just, like I said, just work with their existing tenants. You got more space than you need, I'll put half of it out on the market, see if I can backfill it, that kind of thing. Yeah.
And you're involved in helping to create those type of solutions. I mean, I know transactionally I do too, but you propose them to your clients in a workable way, I think, right?
Yeah. I mean, and you know, that's on the tenant side. I also have a good amount of listings and work with landlords, and there's always sort of the thought, the big bad landlords out there, but lots of them, especially here in the North Bay, they're just families who depend on that real estate. They've inherited it. It's been in their family. That's how they, you know, put food on their table. So there's a lot of concern about the eviction moratorium, which we expect to keep going. You know, and there's people out there taking advantage for sure, but a couple of tenants just, you know, come to me, I want to get my rent. I'm not going to pay for whatever the next few months. And it's kind of like, JLL's come up with a pretty solid list of things that you need to provide to the landlord in order to prove that you're unable to pay your rent. And a lot of times once people get that list, they go, oh, okay, you know what? I'm all right. I can pay. There's a little bit of that happening too. It's funny. But that's society, right? But yeah, it's like a total case by case basis. Everyone's got a different setup and just being impacted in different ways. And there's just still so much uncertainty out there where people are still real hesitant to make decisions. So just been having a lot of conversations with folks.
Laura, you're talking about leases a lot. Do you do sales too of industrial?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you seeing negotiations on like the sales side, like more negotiations or less than usual?
We definitely saw sales slow down. San Francisco is a very interesting, telling market just in general, because it's what happens there sort of trickles out a lot into the rest of the Bay Area and Northern California. In second quarter, there was only like one major office building sold in San Francisco, which is crazy. I mean, there is always, you know, a large handful of buildings trading hands over there. Again, because interest rates are so low right now, we're definitely expecting that sales to pick back up. I think there was just like I said, Q2 is kind of that's where when I'm talking about numbers and stats, like that's what I'm looking at. It's what I have to look at. But again, it was just that sort of everybody going, what's happening? Pause, that uncertainty. So, building sales were definitely down across the board, but do I expect that to keep happening even for the rest of the year? No. And largely because, folks still have to do stuff. If they have a lease expiring and they want to purchase right now with SBA lending, it's, I do all these own versus lease scenarios. So I'll run, what does it look like to lease this building for the next 5 years, or what does it look like to own it? And right now with the interest rates and the lending packages that the SBA is doing, it's really attractive still to purchase. So for businesses. And I know on the residential side, same thing. I always say this, I hate saying that we're in a bubble in the Bay Area or in the North Bay, but we are always going to be somewhere where people want to live and do business. And so for that reason, I feel like we have this sort of insulation when you look at, you look at the news and you read what's happening kind of US wide. We're faring a lot better here in California, here in the Bay Area, here in the North Bay, compared to a lot of that negative stuff you look at. You start kind of digging down into where we're at here. It's definitely looks a lot better on a positive note.
Well,
yeah.
It's nice to feel like we're in that bubble. The downside is that we're in a bubble.
Exactly. I hate the word bubble, but it's, there's a bit of insulation, I guess, whatever you want to say. But, there's a lot of folks reevaluating whether or not they need their offices in San Francisco. So similar to kind of what's happening in residential, I think there's going to be a lot more San Francisco firms opening smaller firms up here in the North Bay. Whether that's leasing them or purchasing them, we definitely expect a little bit more of that business to trickle up here with people working from home. Why not work in the wine country than downtown San Francisco where there's too many people right now? So it's one of those things, again, I'm sort of forecasting. It's stuff that we talk about, but JLL's been very careful not to throw too much forecasting out. Our competitors have done it and had to retract stories and reports and stuff. So it's definitely still super uncertain times, but yeah. Let's see what else I was going to talk to you guys about. I don't know. Is there any other questions kind of here in the Valley? Do you want me to talk a little bit more about the real estate here?
Yeah, I think people on this show love to hear all about the Valley. So tell us,
Yeah.
You're seeing a lot of sublease requests. What else are you seeing?
Definitely more subleasing. Like I said, I do a lot of industrial business, and that's basically the whole kind of 8th Street East area here in town. We track about 2.5 million square feet over there of industrial. And, even pre-COVID, we reported a vacancy rate of below 5%. So that means out of all of the inventory that's on the market or that's there, that exists, only 5% of it is actually available for lease or purchase at any given time. Sonoma has a funny setup in that out of that 2.5 million square feet over there, 1.6 is owned by one owner, 1.6 million is owned by one ownership group. So that just creates kind of a funky demand, kind of a funky dynamic. Like I said, there's very little supply over there and the demand remains super high. And now all of a sudden there's, these big e-commerce companies, there's big food delivery, storage, all those folks are sort of eyeing these smaller submarkets around the Bay Area, and Sonoma being one of them. Clearly,
I'm curious if they're going to put a light at the end of 8th Street now, because if you're going to put that huge intersection, or all those, it is ridiculous right now to try and get out.
That was a requirement when the developer built it, that he had to do that before I don't know what it was. I think it was, yeah, it's definitely going in. It was part of the requirement by the county.
I think I've almost killed myself 10 times trying to get out of there, and like, it's just.
I know that road's not great. It's a freeway essentially right there. You hit a freeway, and it's a 2-lane freeway.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like
So
Laura's been experiencing what I'm really like experiencing in the residential side. We're seeing the urban flight syndrome coming into Sonoma, and we're seeing the massive demand, the low interest rates, and it looks like it's carrying over into the commercial and industrial side as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
Well,
one of those things. It's just still that much uncertainty in the market. It's just hard to say what I think is going to happen, you know, with, but I still, again, we are the Bay Area, we're North Bay, Sonoma Valley. There's a lot to be said for that, the bubble thing, but it's a thing.
Laura, we really appreciate your time. We like to keep these kind of brief and to the point, and hopefully we can have you back on another time to catch up with you. And when some uncertainty lets up on us right now,
it's a little more clarity. Exactly.
Weird, right?
Exactly.
But hey, good news is cases look like they're kind of tapering off, and that's a positive sign. And certainly they seem to be correlating that with the bars being closed. So I don't know that bars are getting opened anytime soon, but that's good news. We'll take it, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I'd love to.
Yeah, thanks, Laura.
Back when. Yeah, absolutely. I think when, like I said, I look at these Q2 numbers and they're just skewed right now. It'll be really enlightening whenever we've got another couple quarters to really be able to compare and contrast and see where this thing's going.
Absolutely.
Well, stay in touch with us and let us know. And thanks so much for sharing your expertise. We'll check in.
No problem.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Laura. Take care.